Hey everyone, welcome back to the Roto Grinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's July. It's the 19th of July. It's 2016. It's Tuesday. There's 15 baseball games tonight. There's a ton to talk about. We have some top options, and we have probably 20 bad options on the hill tonight. So there's going to be a lot of hitter discussion here on the podcast. And to get a little bit of a cash game look, I am bringing my friend Derek on. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh yeah, like to mix it up every once in a while. You know, me and the Siege get on here and we start talking tournaments, and have to bring you guys, some cash game plays every once in a while.
Yeah, well, that is definitely me. I don't play a lot of GPPs, but cash games are nice. I like cash games.
Yeah, I know you do. We're gonna jump right into it. We have so much to talk about, but before we jump into it, let's talk about Fantasy Draft, the sponsor of the podcast. If you enjoy the podcast Monday through Friday, they sponsor it. So make sure you head on over to fantasydraft.com, use promo code GRINDERS. That way you get incentives here at Roto Grinders for Fantasy Draft for free for a year, and you get a 100% deposit bonus up to $600. They have a cool $1,000 5-day survive to advance where the top 70% advance each round, and you don't even have to beat 50% of the field. You're only having to beat 70% of the field. So I like this tournament a lot here. No, Derek, not liking that.
Sorry, I got distracted. I thought I closed Skype, and then Jordan was Skyping me, and I'm like, damn it, Jordan, go away.
That's okay. I'll allow it this one time. Beating 70% of the field sounds pretty simple, right?
Yeah, beating 70% of the field, it's not too hard.
Let's talk some baseball. We have a lot to talk about here. We were chatting before, and it's going to be interesting to see where the cash game mind is and where the tournament mind is. We're going to start Milwaukee at Pittsburgh. Junior Herrera against Jameson Taillon. Taillon making his first start back from the DL. Young arm, really high prospect. I don't expect him to go deep into this game.
And that's the big issue, because if he was on a normal pitch count, if this wasn't his first game off the DL, I would think Taillon was one of the best plays of the whole day. The Brewers are taking, a big park hit into PNC. It's a pretty solid pitcher's park. Taillon is very talented. The problem is just that he's not going to go deep enough, and he's not priced at a significant enough discount where he's really going to be a great option either in cash games or in GPPs, because that upside isn't there.
Yeah, it was shoulder. It's not like it was hamstring or something like that. This is a shoulder injury. This is a prospect for Pittsburgh. They're playing for more than this season. So I just don't expect him to go deep. What, 85, 90 pitches here?
Yeah, I think even that's probably the high end of what we'll see for him, at least based on my best guess. Like he's well priced on FanDuel. He's 7,200, but on a one pitcher site, he's definitely not your cash game guy. And then on two pitcher sites, he's just too expensive to be your second. So I don't know. I want to play him. I like the matchup. You just can't do it.
Now, looking at the other side here, Herrera, 36% hard contact rate. The Sierra and XFIP suggesting a little bit of regression coming here. What's your thoughts on him?
He's an interesting guy. I don't think he's a bad pitcher by any means. I think he's actually, average-ish, maybe a little below average. I don't think this is a great matchup for him, and he seems to be really priced up. I mean, over 10,000 on DraftKings. I think over 20,000 on Fantasy Draft. So I think he's a decent pitcher. I think the matchup is okay because it is that park boost. It's a Pirates offense that's very right-handed that maybe strikes out a little bit. But I don't see how you can actually pay for him. He's not on the same level as a Jose Quintana or a Carlos Martinez, who are going to cost you the same amount.
Yeah, the price, it's just not good. Let's talk bats. Who do you like here for the Brewers?
I think you have to like Jonathan Villar the most, because even though Taillon is a talented pitcher, Taillon is the worst pitcher in literally all of baseball right now in terms of preventing steals. He hasn't faced a lot of teams that really have speedsters yet in the majors, so we haven't seen a ton of guys running on him. But a guy like Villar, if he gets on base, he's running. It's almost guaranteed.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not a lot of people are going to look into that and see that. His price He's priced like he's a good play today, though. You're really going to have to pay for him to be in your lineups. And I think for that reason, he becomes a pretty interesting tournament play because nobody's going to want to pay this $8,800 price tag on fantasy draft. And when we're looking even at like DraftKings or FanDuel, he's priced as a top 10 shortstop. And I feel like at that point, people are going to pivot to other people.
Yeah, I would think they would, but I think VR is going to be one of the top shortstop plays today. And then too, even though Taillon's not going to go that deep, so VR would have to probably get those steals against him, in maybe 2 at-bats. The bullpen behind him, the Pittsburgh bullpen's not very good. So, I mean, I do think there could be some runs scored even after the starters come out here.
Hey, you're not worried about like Jonathan Neese or Locke, whoever went to the bullpen. Like, oh, that doesn't scare you.
Yeah, that would be Neese. Locke still has his spot. Locke is still cruising along.
Yeah, for now. Now looking at the other side, do you like any of the Pittsburgh bats here?
Not really. Mostly just because this is more of a pitcher's park. Garrett is a decent pitcher, and as you kind of alluded to earlier on, there are a lot of really good spots today where I don't think you need to force anything against Garrett. I think this is one of the weaker offensive spots today, this game.
One name I'll throw out at you, just because his price tag is so low, it seems like just about everywhere tonight. Andrew McCutchen. We saw him start to get it going right before the All-Star break. This price tag on Fantasy Draft and on DraftKings just so low here. Does he pique your interest at all?
3,400 on DraftKings is cheap, but I mean that's about what McCutchen has been priced at lately. He's a guy who I want to like McCutchen again. I want to start to trust him again, but I just can't yet. I haven't seen. I don't know. He was pretty good before the break, but especially those last couple games. But I want to see a little bit more out of him, I think, before I can really trust him again. Especially he went 0 for 8 on Sunday. That's just, I mean, that's awful. Like, the price is good, but I think there are going to be other good value plays today where I'm not ready to risk McCutchen yet.
Baltimore at New York, Nathan Eovaldi against Vance Worley. Worley making a start out of the bullpen here. Another guy that I don't think is going to be too stretched out, right?
No, I think we'll probably see maybe 70, 75 pitches out of Worley today. That would be where I'm ballparking it.
That's if he makes it out of the first couple innings without getting shelled.
That's true. That's his max. Assuming he doesn't get shelled, that's how many he's throwing.
Yeah, just a guy, we're looking at just overall stats. He struggles with lefties, 342 WOBA dating back to last year against lefties, and he's going to see a lot of left-handed bats here from the Yankees.
Yes, he is. The Yankees are going to load up on the lefties, and I think they can probably do some damage against Worley because he's not a very good pitcher.
Nathan Eovaldi on the other side here, his price tag is really cheap. Does that pique your interest at all?
I don't want it to, but it really does. It really does. 10-8 on Fantasy Draft, 54, I think, on DraftKings. It's so cheap. Like, I get that Eovaldi has been bad this year. I get that people have been burned by him. I mean, I certainly was in that Petco game. But he's not as bad of a pitcher as the ERA indicates, and he's not as bad of a pitcher as the price tag indicates. Like, there's certainly blow-up risk here. It's Yankee Stadium. It's a powerful Orioles offense, but there's also upside because this is an offense that strikes out a lot, that yesterday was missing one of their best left-handed hitters, one of their best hitters in general, and Chris Davis. He was sick. I didn't catch exactly what he was sick with, but presumably he'll be out again today. And if that's the case, then I think you can really make a strong case for Eovaldi definitely as a GPP guy, and maybe even as your second starter in cash games, just because of how cheap he is.
You can make it. I can't. I can't do it, man. I really can't. Just digging into the stats, he hasn't thrown over 100 pitches since May 29th. Like, his last few starts before he got demoted to the bullpen, 6 earned runs, 5 earned runs, 4 earned runs, 6, 5, 5. Like, he was really struggling before heading to the bullpen. And one of those games is against Baltimore. I can't do it. I can understand the reasoning behind it. You're going to open up a lot with him as your SP2, but it's just not something that I can stomach.
No, it's not. But I mean, part of the reason those pitch counts weren't up there was because he was getting shelled. He gave up 6 runs to the Padres. He gave up 5 runs to the Twins. He gave up 4 runs before that to the Twins. So maybe that's the one thing that I think is working against him, is that he didn't go deep in those games. Then he was in the bullpen. So now he's not maybe stretched out anymore. So if you're assuming a limited pitch count with him, then maybe he's lower than he needs to be viable.
Yeah, now, so say the Baltimore lineup rolls out and Chris Davis is still out sick. Wieters got hit in the foot in the 6th or 7th, 8th inning, and he got x-rayed, so we don't even know if he's going to be in the lineup. We know Kim's been dealing with a hamstring injury. Now, we could see definitely a watered-down lineup, but even at that point, I still think he's really risky.
There's no doubt. If you play him, there's going to be risk. It doesn't matter what the lineup looks like. But say you have, Nolan Reimold in there instead of Davis. You have, Joey Rickard in there instead of Kim. You have Caleb Joseph in there instead of Wieters. Now all of a sudden, this is not as good of a lineup. There's a bunch of guys who can strike out. Like there's risk for sure, but there's definitely value.
Yeah, you're really just fading the top 4 hitters at that point. So. All right, let's talk bats in this game. We'll start with Baltimore. Is there any Baltimore bats that you want to target Eovaldi with?
Not really. I mean, if there's someone that is well priced, like Manny Machado is still 4,100 on DraftKings, I can see that maybe just because, he's third base eligible, shortstop eligible, and that's just too cheap for how talented he is. But really the only Baltimore plays I'm going to be making today are going to be ones like that, where it's just that the price is too low.
Yeah, Machado was the guy that I had in mind too, but I'm not against a 4 or 5 man stack here against Eovaldi, just in case he does have that 4 or 5 earn run blow up game, and it is a good ballpark. We know Baltimore, they pretty much turned into a boomer bust offense. This team hits a lot of home runs, so they're never a bad team to stack just about any night. So I'm not against the Baltimore stack. Now, looking at the Yankees, I think you're going to have a lot of interest in Gardner, Ellsbury, McCann, even Beltran at this price.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to. This is, like we said earlier, this is not a very good pitcher in Vance Worley, and so you can make a case for sure for a lot of these guys. Like Carlos Beltran, he's come up a little bit. From yesterday. Yesterday he was 3,200 on DraftKings, which was just insane. Today he's still 37. That's still really cheap. I guess what I'm curious what's going to happen. Like, let's say Worley gets rocked, or even Worley goes 5 innings. Like, the Orioles bullpen is very good, but I don't know who comes in if Worley gets rocked. Like, who? I don't know. I guess I need to look over their bullpen here. But I mean, this is. Can we start over? I'm losing my train of thought here.
You want to start the whole thing over?
Just I don't know, go back like a minute, if that's all right.
We'll start with the hitters of Baltimore.
Okay.
That work?
Yeah, that works.
Now switching on over here to the other side, Baltimore bats. No, we're going to start with the Yankee bats. We already did Baltimore. We're going to start with the Yankee bats. My bad.
Okay.
All right. Now switching on over to the Yankees bats, we got Beltran, we have McCann, we have Ellsbury, Gardner, just all in a good spot here against Worley.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think where the prices are right, you can definitely pick and choose some Yankees bats. Carlos Beltran yesterday was 3,200 on DraftKings, which was just way too cheap. He's come up a little bit today at 3,700, but that's still a really good price. McCann is still well priced at 4,300. Like, there's definitely big power upside anytime you have, these lefties in Yankee Stadium against a pitcher like Worley. My only concern anytime I play anyone against the Orioles is just that the Orioles have a pretty good bullpen, like a very good bullpen. But presumably Worley's going to get knocked around a little bit, and then we're probably going to see someone like Despaigne come in after him. So if that's the way the game plays out, I think a Yankee stack could potentially be pretty profitable.
Yeah, every day I target 3 guys under 8K on Fantasy Draft. The first one is Carlos Beltran at 7,200. There's no reason a guy that's hitting 297 with 19 home runs, batting in the meat of the order, in a hitter's ballpark in this matchup should be that cheap. So he's the first guy I'm going to target here. I just feel like is way underpriced.
Yeah, completely agree.
Let's moving out. Los Angeles heading to Washington. Your boy, Scott Kazmir, against Reynaldo Lopez, who is a pitching prospect in the Washington system. I know he spent most of his time this year at Double-A. Has some high heat, has some heater. Throws in the mid to high 90s.
Yeah, mid to high 90s. He can touch 98, maybe even get close to 100. The problem with him though is that he's still raw. He still has trouble with his command. He walks batters. He even in the minors, even though he has that stuff, he has that great fastball. The secondary stuff has reportedly been kind of hit or miss, which is common with young pitchers. But really the only stop that he dominated was Double-A earlier this year, and then he got promoted to Triple-A, and he really struggled, at least in terms of peripherals. So he's not a guy that I'm expecting a lot from right away. There's definitely long-term upside, but he's definitely not a guy that I'm really interested in playing today.
Yeah, the interest is not there for me as well. I don't even think he is available. Oh, all right. So I just realized what his price is, and I might have a little interest. For tournaments, talking tournaments, of course, everything about this kid screams strikeouts. And if I can get a strikeout pitcher that can put up maybe 15 points at 4K on DraftKings and 8K on Fantasy Draft, little bit of tournament interest here.
Yeah, I can see tournament interest at that price. That is just insanely low. And I don't necessarily think he gets rocked today by any means. Like you said, there's definitely K upside here. So for that price, yeah, I can see it for a tournament.
Now, do you like your boy Kazmir today?
I don't, unfortunately. It's kind of rare when I don't like my Dodgers pitchers, but when they're on the road, that's usually when I don't like them. And against an offense like the Nationals, it's just this isn't the spot to play Kazmir.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. When we're looking at the Nationals, they're fourth in WRC plus against lefties, and they have the highest hard contact rate this year against left-handed pitching. While you wouldn't really think it when you look at the lineup, this team has been just outstanding against left-handed pitching this year.
I mean, aside from Bryce Harper and Daniel Murphy, most of their offense is right-handed. So, I would expect them to be pretty good against lefties, especially because Harper's so good of a hitter that, he's going to hit lefties anyway.
Don't discount Murphy, man.
Murphy too, yeah.
350 this year. Come on, Murphy. Nobody saw that coming, right?
No, not to this extent. Certainly not.
If you would have told me that Murphy would have had 18 home runs at the All-Star break or 17, whatever he had, 16, whatever it was, you would have told me that, I would have told you were crazy. Let's talk bats in this game. Anything that you like here for the Dodgers?
See, I might have some interest in Dodgers if they were well priced, but I really don't see a whole lot to really like in terms of price. Like I said, this isn't a guy you necessarily want to pick on. There is definite upside here. He's going to miss bats, but everyone's just so expensive. Corey Seager's close to 5,000. Justin Turner's over 5,000. You can maybe make a case for for a Chase Utley leading off for 3,900 on DraftKings, but even that's more than you really want to pay.
Yeah, I'm not paying for Chase Utley, and I'm not paying for him on draft. Looking at FanDuel, nothing really stands out to me here for the Dodgers as far as price goes. I love Corey Seager, but I'm not going to pay a premium when I can get a shortstop at Coors. But let's talk Washington bats here. You have any Nationals that you like?
It's kind of the same situation. I'm a big fan of Kazmir in general. I think he's a good pitcher, especially when he's throwing to Yasmani Grandal. And it's, the same thing basically, where all these bats are super expensive. Michael A. Taylor is $4,900 on DraftKings tomorrow. How crazy is that? No, I'm not paying that. There's just so many better hitting spots today that I don't think you need to force that kind of exposure.
Trey Turner, if he's batting leadoff, he's extremely cheap on just about every site. Would you have interest in him?
I missed his price. Yes, I would have interest in him. Second base, shortstop eligible, 3,200 on DraftKings. What's that, 64-ish on Fantasy Draft. So, yeah, actually, he would be a guy that I would have some interest in. 63 on Fantasy Draft.
Yeah, he's the guy that really stood out to me in this offense. Worth, if you want a tournament play, Worth is mashing left-handed pitching this season, which shouldn't surprise anybody. Like, you're looking at his career stats, and this guy's hit left-handed pitching really hard pretty much his whole career. So, and then Anthony Rendon on FanDuel, if he's in the lineup, I know he was scratched Sunday because of flu-like symptoms. He should be back here. He's 2,500 on FanDuel. I have some interest there as well.
Yeah, I can see that. Worth is a guy that I really like. Like, when he's healthy, Worth is still a really good hitter. It's just that, in past years, he hasn't always been healthy. So I can get behind either of those guys.
Mets at Cubs, Jake Arrieta, Noah Syndergaard. I cannot wait to watch this baseball game as a fan. But what do we do here with these pitchers?
I think you play Arrieta, honestly. He, theoretically, he is the top pitcher today, and it's not close. Like, he's super talented. It's a Mets offense that really isn't that scary. There's some strikeout upside against them, and yeah, the only problem is just that he's struggled a little bit lately. And I'm inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt, especially coming off of the All-Star break. They were talking on the broadcast last night with John Lester how Joe Madden basically thought these two guys were just, tired, overworked a little bit, and that he thought they were going to be fine coming out of the All-Star break, getting that kind of rest. Last night, Lester was great. I'm expecting the same thing from Arrieta today. And because he was kind of so bad coming into the break, his price tag is not what it used to be. So he's not even a guy you really have to pay that much for.
Yeah, we're not paying that Arrieta price tag today. I definitely can get behind it. I'm a little concerned. Anytime a guy has 15 runs or 15 earned runs over his last, 3 starts, it's concerning. But I'm with you, man. It's been 11 days since this guy's pitched in the game. His arm's not going to be fatigued. He's going to come out, throwing the ball hard. And I think the same can go for Syndergaard. I think he makes for an ultimate tournament play here against the Cubs. Nobody's going to want to target the Cubs offense. And the Cubs are still a team that strike out a ton. They're striking out 23% of the time against righties this season. So the strikeout upside's there, but, giving up 2 or 3 home runs is obviously a concern as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Syndergaard has the biggest strikeout upside of the entire day. I mean, facing Arrieta is going to cut into his win chances, but I love him as a GPP guy today.
Now, bats in this game, is there anything that you would even remotely take a shot on?
The only thing that you could take a shot on here is just speed guys, because both of these guys really struggle to prevent steals. The problem is that neither of these teams really have a whole lot of speedsters, not with Fowler on the DL for the Cubs. Maybe like a Reyes or a Granderson if they're cheap, but there's just, I don't know. Neither of these teams really profile super well in terms of, that fast guy that can take advantage of this.
Doesn't Baez run? Isn't he a guy that run?
Baez runs. We saw him run on Lester last night, or on who was it? Matt's last night.
Yeah.
But he doesn't generally play a lot against right-handers. He'll play more against lefties. He's been leading off a lot against lefties, but I'm not sure if he's going to be in the lineup today.
Okay. Well, yeah, that'd be something to kind of pay attention to. What do you put into this, spark from Wilmer Flores?
Honestly, I think Flores, it doesn't surprise me that much. I think Flores is kind of a solid hitter. Like, he's a guy who was, I think underrated by a lot of people. He's always kind of had a decent bat, and he just never really got a chance to show it because he was so terrible defensively and he didn't really have a position. So now that he's getting regular playing time, like, I think he's doing pretty much exactly what we should have expected him to do.
Miami at Philadelphia, Vincent Velasquez, Jose Herrera. Any interest in Velasquez here against the Marlins?
Definitely. I wish he was just a little bit cheaper to make him viable as an SP2 option on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft. But as a GPP guy, absolutely. He's probably a top 5 option today, I would think. This is a pretty solid matchup for him.
Yeah, you can kind of fit in Velasquez and Martinez, who we'll talk about here in a minute, and kind of be right around that $20,000 mark and, have a ton of strikeout upside.
Yeah, I mean, Miami isn't a team who strikes out a ton, but Velasquez comes with so many to begin with, and I do think there's plenty of strikeout upside here.
Yeah, and, looking at what he did against the Marlins, I think it was at the end of May, middle of May, he posted 10 strikeouts against the Marlins. So while they're not striking out a ton, the strikeouts are still there, like you said. I don't know what to do with the bats here for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's exactly how I felt.
Do we have an official announcement for who the Miami pitcher is going to be yet tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's Jose Urena. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not very good.
He's not, but where do we attack him outside of Franco and Herrera? Maybe at Ashy?
Yeah, is Ashy still really? No, he's not even that cheap anymore. 3,700 on DraftKings. So I mean, as bad as he is, I think the Phillies offense itself is so bad that unless you're getting them at a sizable discount, they're really not that appealing.
No, I could play Ashy at 7,200 on Fantasy Draft. That's a pretty solid, floor type play there. I think you can look at him there. Franco's priced up 9,300. There's going to be better options in that price range. And Herrera, I always like Herrera, but if Real Muto's catching, that's going to limit the stolen base upside as well.
Yes, it will. I don't have how Urena is at it actually in front of me, but yeah, I think it's tough to play a guy like that, especially when he is so expensive.
All right, let's move on. Atlanta at Cincinnati. Oh, man, what a game we have here. Tyrell Jenkins against Cody Reed. I'm guessing you don't like the pitchers here?
No, I definitely do not like the pitchers here.
Well, hey, Atlanta against the lefty, I played Finnegan, but I'm guessing you didn't. Come on, I can't even do it with Reed.
No, I don't think you can do it with Reed. I wasn't super on Finnegan yesterday. There was strikeout upside, but I also thought there was a lot of blow up risk as well, especially because these days Atlanta does have some decent-ish righties. They play more righties than they were earlier in the year. Yeah. And I do think Reed is a worse pitcher than Finnegan is. And it's just this park makes it so difficult to play them. There's strikeout upside for sure, the same as there was for Finnegan yesterday, because it is a park that boosts strikeouts a little bit. But I have a hard time really seeing Reed as a viable option. As a GPP guy, sure, but in cash games, maybe not as much.
Yeah, let's talk bats here. The second fantasy draft play that I just feel like is criminally underpriced for this matchup is Adonis Garcia, 5,600, which he's cheap on just about every site today. And I just think this is an excellent matchup here for him on Reed, getting a ballpark bump going into Cincinnati. He's just too cheap, right?
Too cheap. I mean, he was too cheap yesterday against Finnegan at 3,100, I think he was. He was pretty much a must play in my mind. He obviously did great. And today he's 200 less against a weaker pitcher. So, yeah, Adonis Garcia is a great play today.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Garcia. Any other Braves that you like here?
Gordon Beckham, 3,100. He'll be leading off. I would imagine he'll be just as good of a play as well. Anthony Recker was a nice surprise yesterday, especially with the steal. I don't know if they'll have him catch 2 days in a row, but if he does, he's 2,600 on DraftKings, so he would be in play also.
Yeah, and he can't throw out Hamilton either. We know Przinsky can't, but Recker can't either.
Nope, no, he cannot.
So let's talk Reds bats. Hamilton pretty cheap still. Is this another spot we're going to go back to the well?
Yeah, this is a really good spot, I think, for the Reds. Maybe not as much for Hamilton. As bad of a pitcher as Jenkins is, and as much as I love the Reds today, it does look like he was really good at preventing steals in the minors. So maybe not the best spot for Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton can steal on anybody, but you still, when I play Hamilton, I want it to be against a guy who I really know that he's going to take off against, and I don't know if that's Jenkins. But I do love the Reds' offense. Outside of Coors and Boston, they're my top offense today.
I don't know if you were watching or not. Billy Hamilton took 2 steps off first base for that third stolen base and still stole second base. I don't even care who the pitcher is. I have faith in Hamilton. If Przinsky's back there, he is awful at throwing people out. So I think Hamilton's in another good spot here, and I'm with you. I think that on a lot of sites you can get some of these Reds criminally underpriced, and Adam Duvall on FanDuel at 3K. Just sign me up.
How is his price never going up? Like how?
I've been saying it for 2.5 months.
Yeah, like
I was on Duvall in week 1 of the season. I mean, you had talked about it before, and his price has just never moved.
No, it really hasn't. I mean, he was like 2,200 for a little while, and it was insane. But still, 3K is it's way too cheap for him, especially when you look on a site like Fantasy Draft or DraftKings, and he's sometimes their most expensive hitter.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. Let's move on. Minnesota at Detroit, Anibal Sanchez, Tommy Milone. This game disappointed a lot of people. The Vegas total was extremely high in this game last night. Is this a spot that we just go back to the well, or is it a spot that we move on and look elsewhere?
I think we go back to the well here. This is a game where there should be some runs scored. There should be some steals being taken. And this is a game where I'm going to probably try to get some offensive exposure.
It wouldn't have anything to do with Tommy Milone is just awful against righties, facing a very heavy right-handed lineup, and Anibal Sanchez shouldn't even be in the bigs anymore.
Yep, I would agree with both of those statements.
The problem is, like, the Minnesota lineup that rolled out last night, like, it was so frustrating to see just how bad the lineup looked. Like, why don't you have Vargas in there against a lefty? It made zero sense to me. It'd be interesting to see the lineup that we get here, but I think you stack these two teams.
Yeah, it was a weird lineup last night. Like, Kepler hitting 5th. Like, even if you're going to play him, like, drop him down a little bit. Like, I don't know. But yeah, this is a game where you're going to want to get some guys. I think Eduardo Nunez, especially where he's well priced. Like DraftKings, he's 4,500. Fantasy Draft, he's 9,000 ish. It's a little more than you want to pay for Nunez, but Sanchez is really bad at preventing steals, so I can definitely see him being a great play today.
I like Nunez. I think he's very underrated. I think a lot of people are jumping on now, but I think he's really underrated. Excellent spot for hitters in this game. I'm all aboard the Tigers stack here. I love this spot for them. If they can't get right against Milone, I'm done with them for a couple days at least.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
And if you need a cheap punt catcher on FanDuel, James McCann, 2K. Love him against lefties. 2K for some power upside. I'll take that at catcher every day.
Absolutely. And on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft, like, you're not even going to have to spend that much for these guys. They're kind of, I don't know, surprisingly cheap. Miguel Cabrera is 4,300 on DraftKings. Justin Upton, again, is pretty cheap at 3,600. So there's definitely some value here, too. It's not just that they're a good play overall.
Yeah, James McCann is priced more than Posey on DraftKings.
That's insane. I'm not playing James McCann on DraftKings. You just
no. Oh, man. All right, let's talk about it. Everybody's going to want us to talk about it. San Francisco at Boston, Rick Porcello, Jake Peavy. Do you have any interest in either one of these pitchers?
No. I don't think anyone should ever have any interest in either of these pitchers.
Yeah, not the greatest spot in the world for Porcello, and Peavy coming back to Boston. I don't expect him to last more than 5 innings. I know we chatted a little bit. I know you're not as high on the Red Sox. Who do you have here for the Red Sox that you like?
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this the night before, so it's hard to know exactly where public opinion is going to turn. But I would imagine, being that it's Jake Peavy, that people are going to be all over the Red Sox. Like Vegas, I wouldn't be surprised if their team total is like approaching 6 today. I think if that's the case, that's going to be overstating it, because, I mean, as bad of a pitcher as Jake Peavy is, like, he's that bad pitcher in the National League. Like, you put him, I don't know. You put him in the American League, you put him in Boston, he's going to get hit, but, like, I don't see him getting obliterated.
Yeah, I'm all about the Red Sox stack here, unless, like you said, it's going to be really popular with a game in cores with 2 mediocre pitchers there. I know Snell's a big prospect, but 2 mediocre pitchers in cores. It'd be interesting to see the type of ownership for Boston, because you're going to have to pay up for these guys. They're priced pretty right just about everywhere, so it's not like you're going to get David Ortiz underpriced anywhere. So I think that people that are going to pay this massive price tag for Ortiz on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft here. Like 10-8 on Fantasy Draft is probably going to put him. Let's pull it up here. He is the same price as Arenado, Donaldson, and more than Trout. So he's the third highest price hitter here.
You put it a lot better than I did, and that's exactly it. We have Coors in play. Coors is going to be a much better play than this, and you're not going to get the Red Sox at a discount.
Yep. So it'd be interesting to see what ownership is. Is there any bats that you want here from the Giants against Porcello?
I mean, you can make a case for Buster Posey. He's under 4K on DraftKings, I think under 8 on Fantasy Draft. So you can make a case for him because he is, he's the top offensive catcher in the game. He's getting a big park boost into Fenway, and that's a really cheap price for him. So I could see the case for him. I can maybe see the case for Brandon Belt, who's also pretty underpriced. But that might be the extent of my interest.
No interest in Connor Gillespie, huh? He's just knocking the cover off the baseball every once in a while here.
I mean, I'm not a big Connor Gillespie guy, so
it was totally a joke. Nobody play him. I was totally joking. Cleveland at Kansas City, Danny Salazar. I'm seeing two things here. I'm seeing Brian Flynn. Yeah, okay, so it is Flynn. I saw Chris Young earlier today. So Brian Flynn against Danny Salazar. Any interest in Salazar here?
Yeah, definitely as a GPP guy. In cash games, if you're not paying for Arrieta, which, I mean, he's not that expensive, so it's not like you really have to pay for him. You can look at Salazar. I think he's going to be one of the top options today. But the upside just isn't quite there for me to really warrant paying for him in your cash games because it's the Royals in Kauffman Stadium. Kauffman Stadium it's not a pitcher's park like everyone thinks it is, especially for DFS purposes. Like it kills strikeouts. It doesn't depress runs all that much. And when you put the Royals in it, they don't strike out that much. So he'll get his strikeouts because he's Salazar, but he's not going to go crazy with them.
Yeah, just, I talked about it with Siege yesterday about Kluber. The Royals aren't a top 10 offense anymore. Like, this is a bottom 10 WRC plus team against right-handed pitching now. Like, this is not the same team that we're so used to. So I think Salazar is an excellent tournament play. And I don't see a lot of people, like, especially on FanDuel one-pitcher sites, he's priced in between Arrieta, Syndergaard, and Carlos Martinez. I just don't see Salazar being very popular.
I can see, given that price tag, people just foregoing him for some of those other guys who are in more obviously good matchups. So, I mean, I can definitely see him as a GPP guy there. Like I said, the strikeout upside isn't there, but this isn't a very good offense either. Like, he is going to prevent the runs, and he's going to get a few strikeouts. So I can definitely get behind that.
You kind of think that he's going to get some run support here too, right?
You would have to think so. Brian Flynn, I didn't even think was a very good pitcher as a reliever. As a starter, forget about it. So the Indians are going to put up some runs on him. He's probably not going to go very deep because he is coming out of the bullpen, maybe 70 pitches, and then when he comes out, well, there's a good chance we see someone like Chin-Ming Wang or Dylan G or someone coming out of the pen behind him to eat up a couple innings. So I can see the Indians scoring some runs here.
Yeah, and Ned Yost, there was a report that said he's going to somewhere between 60 to 70 pitches on Flynn today. So
there you go.
We already know that he's going to be a bullpen game. We don't want to get into the back end of that bullpen, but 60 to 70 pitches, we should see. We might even see Chris Young. That's always fun to see.
We could see Chris Young. This Kansas City bullpen, everyone thinks of it as one of the best bullpens in baseball or the best bullpen in baseball, especially with Wade Davis on the DL. This is a below average bullpen. Yeah, their back end guys are great, but if you're not facing those back end guys, the rest of their bullpen is terrible.
Yeah, I can't hate on that. I like the Cleveland stack a lot here. And one thing that we kind of want to mention, this game, it's supposed to be extremely hot at first pitch, 96 degrees, great humidity, kind of playing favorable to the hitters here.
Yeah, the weather I was looking at wasn't quite that hot, but it does look like the hottest game of the day, a little bit of humidity. So yeah, you can, that's going to help the offense.
Any Kansas City bats that you want here against Salazar?
Not really. I mean, Yesterday, I played Eric Hosmer against Kluber because I paid up for pitching. I paid for Lester and Fernandez, and you needed cheap bats like that. So even though they're still priced down against Salazar today, like Hosmer's still 2,900. I don't think today is the kind of day where you really need that kind of guy because pitching just isn't as expensive.
Yeah, I can never hate on it. Like you're paying really like a discounted price for a guy that's batting over 300. So like I'm not going to tell you if that's kind of the route that you want to go. I'm not going to say no to it, but with Ortiz and Miguel Cabrera and some of these other guys in just excellent spots, I feel like today is a day you probably are going to need a lot out of your first baseman.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of good offensive spots today. There's not, like I said, there's not a whole lot of pitching that you have to spend on. It's not like a Fernandez that's, close to 14K. The most expensive pitcher today is whoever, I think Arrieta or someone, 12 and a half or something like that. So yeah, I don't see a whole lot of need to go cheap here.
San Diego at St. Louis, Carlos Martinez, Colin Ray. Martinez, we saw Leake put up 11 strikeouts against the Padres last night. I totally missed that boat. I had 0 Leake. I played a lot of tournaments. I went pretty tournament heavy. And I just kind of missed that. And I feel like I'm going to play Martinez pretty heavy tonight. And I feel like it's going to be a letdown. But I just don't see how we can't play Carlos Martinez here.
Yeah, Carlos Martinez is a great play today. I don't I don't think anyone was expecting Leake to do what he did yesterday, especially given the conditions. Like it's hot in St. Louis. This isn't Petco Park where they're on the ocean and it's in like the low 70s. Like no, this is 90-degree temperatures in St. Louis, which is a little bit more of a hitter's park relative to Petco to begin with. So I mean, I like Carmart today. I think he's the next best option after Arrieta. But in your 2-pitcher cash games, I do think you pay for Arrieta, and I think Carmart is a little too expensive to try and pair with him.
Yeah, one thing that I do want to note about Martinez here, Melvin Upton was back to Melvin Upton things. He was swinging a foot over the baseball last night. So just want to note that he could pick up maybe 2 or 3 easy strikeouts against Melvin Upton right now.
That is definitely a possibility. Upton swings at a lot of pitches, and he misses almost as many.
Colin Ray on the other side here, I'm guessing you don't have interest.
No, definitely no interest in Colin Ray. If anything, I would have more interest in the bats against Ray.
All right, let's talk about those bats. We'll start with St. Louis. Anything pique your interest here that you kind of want to fit in your lineups?
It's always hard with St. Louis because you never know what their lineup is going to look like, and who you're going to play from St. Louis is so dependent on it. Like yesterday, I thought 100% I'm playing Randal Grichuk. He's so cheap everywhere. He's going to be leading off against a lefty, and then he's hitting whatever he hits, 6th or 7th or something like that. Today, Randal Grichuk, even if he's leading off, he's up to 4,900. So it's like you have to juggle who they're actually going to play in what spot in the lineup, and then what their prices look like. So it's really hard to tell ahead of time who you want to play with St. Louis.
Grichuk is really cheap today, 2,600 on FanDuel.
Yeah, he's been cheap on FanDuel for a while, so he's definitely still in play there.
I think we might see him bat leadoff. Like he's been much better against right-handed pitching through the little bit of sample size that we have. Matt Adams, I feel like this is a good spot for Adams when we're looking at Ray. Gives up a lot of hard contact. We already mentioned how hot it's going to be today. Is this a spot that we could see Adams maybe have that big game?
It's definitely possible, and he is one of the more affordably priced Cardinals bats. Like assuming he's in the lineup, assuming he's hitting 4th or 5th, 3,300 on DraftKings, and in the mid 6s on Fantasy Draft. That's a good price for him. It is the kind of day, like you said, where there are going to be some big bats at first base. Some of them, like maybe a Miguel Cabrera, are underpriced themselves. But I don't dislike the thought of saving some money here with Adams.
Yeah, Adams on Fantasy Draft, where you can play multiple first basemen. I think that he's just too cheap over there. He's the 3rd Fantasy Draft play today, 6,600. Just locking in these cheap guys to be able to fit in some top-tier pitching and some of these big bats that we're going to talk about here in course.
Yeah, that's a good point about Fantasy Draft, where you're not restricted to just the one first baseman. That makes Adams a lot more appealing over there.
Tampa at Colorado. Tyler Chatwood, Blake Snell. Tell me who not to play in this game.
Really? Can I? All right, I'll tell you who not to play. I was going to say you can't tell people to not play anyone in Coors, but I will tell you not to play Ryan Rayburn ever, ever in cash games. There is not a single exception to this rule.
I don't even think he'll be in the lineup, right? Like they've been playing Barnes a lot.
Left, right? He'll be in the lineup, won't he?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, he'll probably be back in the lineup. I'm with you. I'm not a Rayburn's always a guy that piques my interest in tournaments, but you almost have to expect that he's going to get 2 or 3 at bats.
And that's exactly it. So in tournaments, if he hits a home run in one of those at bats, fantastic. In cash games, it's downright stupid to play Rayburn in cash games.
Trevor Story. That's all I'm saying. That's all. I did it in that voice so you guys just know Trevor Story against the lefty at home. It almost feels like you almost have to lock him in at this point.
Yeah, he's really on a roll. He's still pretty cheap on FanDuel, 3,800. He's not 3,000 like he was for a while, but he's still cheap there. I like the Rays more than I like the Rockies today, but Story and Arenado are obviously going to be elite plays.
Yeah, definitely elite plays. Don't hate Mark Reynolds where like on draft where you can play multiple first basemen. Who do you like here for the Rays?
You're going to like – there's a lot of guys you're going to like. And, two, it's going to be a little bit dependent on what the batting order looks like. Like last night, Kevin Kiermaier had hit second, which would be really interesting tonight, especially since tonight he's actually going to get to face a right-handed pitcher. But I think any of the lefties are going to be in play. Brad Miller is going to be in play. Corey Dickerson is going to be in play. Corey Dickerson is so cheap, 3,900 on DraftKings. Like that's close to must-play pricing for a guy like him.
Not to mention the narrative street of he didn't start on Monday, going back to Colorado, getting the start here. I'm guessing he's going to be in the lineup. Like it would be pretty shocking if they play like Geyer over him here. So I expect Dickerson to be in the lineup. Like you mentioned, love his price tag on draft. Man, Kiermaier, if he's in that 2 spot, I know he's expensive on Fantasy Draft and DraftKings, but if he's in the 2 spot, I think that he's definitely still in play, even granted his price tag.
Yeah, definitely in play. The price tag is going to make him hard to fit in cash games because if you're paying that kind of price, like you're probably going to be paying it for, a Trevor Story or a little bit more for an Arenado or something like that. But it is a good price. One other guy whose price is really good is Oswaldo Arcia. Assuming he's in the lineup, I would assume he would be. 3,600 on DraftKings is a nice price for him.
All right, we don't have to spend a lot of time in Coors. They're all in play. Wait until you see the lineups. Build it, It's the same story every day. Toronto at Arizona, another good game here. Aaron Sanchez, Zach Godley. Do you like Sanchez here?
Honestly, I do. I think Sanchez is like a really sneaky good play today.
I think like you're only worried about Jake Lamb, right? Like that's the one bat you're worried about because, Sanchez is really good against righties. So while I'm still worried about Goldschmidt, I feel like Lamb's the one guy that I'm really worried about.
Yeah, you're worried about Lamb. You're always worried about Goldschmidt, but you can definitely get around those two. This is the guy who he's coming into the National League. Even though it's not a good park, it's really hot there, so the roof is going to be closed. And they're so right-handed and they strike out so much against righties that I think Sanchez is a really good play today.
Yeah, he's a guy that I had written down for tournaments. I'm right there with you. And I just don't see him being very popular today. And when we're looking at draft and DraftKings, we got to kind of find a second pitcher that's not over, expensive price tag, 10K on DraftKings, 20,000 on Fantasy Draft. So got to kind of find that guy. And Sanchez might be that low-owned guy that we can target in tournaments because everybody's going to say he's at Chase Field. Why play him? And Diamondbacks are not as great as everybody thinks they are.
No, they're really not. I've found playing pitchers, right-handed pitchers in particular, against the Diamondbacks and Chase Field, especially on days like this where the roof is closed. Like there's a lot of sneaky value to be had with those plays. I think it's a very underrated play.
I'm right there with you. Now, looking at the other side, it's always nice for me to target pitchers that I think are going to be pitching with a lead, and I kind of expect the Blue Jays to put up some runs here against Zach Godley.
I expect the Blue Jays to put up some runs. I don't think they're going to put up enough runs to warrant the price tags you're going to have to pay for them. Like I'm not going to pay $5,500 for Donaldson when that's what I'm going to have to pay for Arenado. Like, I'm just not going to do it. It's nowhere near as good of a matchup as Coors or as the Red Sox or as Cincinnati even.
See, I think this is where we disagree, where cash and tournaments, and because of what you're saying, I feel like Donaldson's going to be so low owned. It's a good hitter's ballpark. We have a guy that gives up a ton of hard contact to righties and a lot of home runs. It's small sample size, don't get me wrong, but I feel like Donaldson's in a great spot here.
And so for tournaments, I would completely agree with you. I mean, obviously, I'm approaching this from a cash game mindset where I don't have to consider ownership. I have to consider whether Arenado's a better play or whether Donaldson's a better play. And I think we both agree Arenado's the better play, but that doesn't mean that Donaldson isn't a good one also. And so in terms of just game theory and, for GPPs, absolutely.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. Arenado's definitely the better play, but if I can get the same type of upside, which I think Donaldson always has the same type of upside, whether it be Coors or not, for probably 20% lower owned here?
I mean, I would think so, right?
I would hope so. I'm making this argument, hoping that he's going to be really low owned. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. Is there any other bats that you want here from the Blue Jays?
I mean, the problem is just they're so expensive. Like, for a while, you could get Troy Tulowitzki at a significant discount to the Donaldsons and Encarnaciones, but you really can't today.
Yeah.
I don't see any prices that are really appealing. The one that maybe, and this would be on the other side, Wellington Castillo. I know he hasn't been that great of late, but $2,300 on DraftKings, that's really cheap.
Free catchers are always nice. We talked about having McCann to punt over on FanDuel. You can punt with Castillo and have that home run upside.
Yeah, I mean, there's always home run upside with him.
The beef is on fire. Texas at LA playing the Angels. Tim Lincecum, Kyle Loesch. This game 5 years ago, we might have been targeting these pitchers.
Yeah, we might have been 5 years ago. Not today.
Not today, indeed. I'm guessing you don't like the pitchers here.
No, I don't. It's tough because I don't like these pitchers at all, but it's such an extreme pitcher's ballpark, easily the best in all of baseball, that I have a hard time really targeting them with hitters either, though.
Yeah, I think that's fair. CJ and I talked about it yesterday, just not being able to get the game right last night, and I feel like I'm in the same spot today. I don't know what to do with this game, and I feel like whatever I'm going to do, because Profar, if he's back in that leadoff spot, he's cheap enough. Odor's cheap enough. I have interest in these guys, and it's been a long time since we've seen Desmond's price so cheap. I don't know how to get it right. And outside of stacking this game, it's kind of the only approach that I think I'll take.
Yeah, I can see it for guys like a Desmond who is, very cheap. For guys like that, I can see a case, but I mean, really the guys that you want from, on the Angels side at least, Trout's super expensive, Pujols is, fairly expensive, so it's hard to really find the value here.
Just looking at Fantasy Draft and DraftKings for some of these prices on the Rangers, you're getting Fielder under 3,000, you're getting Beltre under 3,000, you're getting Profar super cheap. It's just, I feel like price-wise, if you decide that you want to pay up for two stud pitchers, you're going to get exposure to the Texas bats.
I would agree. The Texas bats is the side of the game where you're going to find the value. And those two guys that you pointed out, Beltre and Fielder, they're insanely cheap. Even if you're not necessarily spending up on both of your pitcher spots on DraftKings or Fantasy Draft, you can still think about rostering one or both of these guys and then just loading up with, Coors bats or something like that in all your other spots.
Don't hate that idea as well. Any other thoughts on this game?
No, I think that covers it.
Houston at Oakland, Dallas Keuchel, Dylan Overton. Any interest in Keuchel here going to O.co?
I can see having marginal interest here in a GPP. It's hard. I kind of like Keuchel's matchup today a little bit because it is a nice park upgrade. The problem is just that the strikeouts really aren't going to be there. There's always blow-up risk with Keuchel. And so even in a GPP, even though I kind of like this matchup and I want to say it's a GPP play, like without the strikeout upside, I don't know if it actually is. Like it might just be one of those matchups that's kind of good, but like there's nowhere to actually play Keuchel.
So looking at two pitcher sites, I'm going to give you some names that are around him. Porcello, Corey Reed, Casimir, Chatwood, Malone. Those are the guys that are kind of priced around Keuchel. I think for that reason, like he might be a guy you look at as an SP2, just kind of go out and give me 15 to 20 points.
And I think 15 points is 15 to 20 is about right for him. And at that though, like 8,200 on DraftKings is just, it's more than I want to pay for that. Like if he was 7K, then I'd have some serious interest. But 82 is just, I don't know. Even though he's priced in the same range as those other guys, I don't think any of those other guys are worth it either. Like it's just, it's too expensive.
Now looking at, I'm guessing Dylan Overton doesn't pique your interest?
No, certainly not.
All right, let's talk bats. We'll start with Houston. Carlos Correa, still underpriced in my opinion, especially on DraftKings. Is he a guy we can pivot off Coors at shortstop and get the same type of upside?
I don't know about that level of upside, but he's certainly cheap. There's certainly value with him. O.co is a really tough park to hit in, but Overton isn't a good pitcher. I think Correa, there's definitely value for his price.
Altuve, Springer, any of these guys pique your interest?
A little bit. I mean, Overton is a guy who struggles a little bit with preventing steals. So guys who have speed like that can have some potential. They're priced too high considering the park. Springer and Altuve, they're both Springer's 4,600 on DraftKings. Altuve's 49. That's more than I'm going to spend in a cash game. I mean, if I'm picking a bat here, it's going to be Correa.
Like, tell me why Oakland feels the need to roll this kid out there. Like, is he really that much of a prospect that a guy that has just – he's been awful in 2 starts, and he was awful against the Giants, and he was even bad against L.A. in Los Angeles. Like, do they really feel the need? Like, this might be a guy that just want to work some innings, and we're just going to continue to pick on him? Or do you think this is just a spot where they want to see what happens with Rich Hill?
Yeah, I think it's more just – this is a guy that they want to get a look at, that they want to just kind of have in there to chew up some innings. I don't think he's really considered, that much of a prospect.
All right. I don't know. It's so frustrating to see pitchers that shouldn't be in the big pitch. But anyway, any Oakland bats that you want here against Keuchel?
No, there really isn't. It's, there's always blow-up risk with Keuchel this year, but it's not a good enough offensive spot where I'm going to be playing anyone from a below-average offense against him, really.
The only one that would pique my interest in a tournament is Danny Valencia, but we've mentioned so many good third basemen that I kind of feel like in the same price range, I would much rather have Adonis Garcia at Cincinnati than Valencia O.co.
Yeah, and even on like DraftKings and Fantasy Draft, you're getting a significant discount with Garcia over Valencia. Valencia's price is solid for what he is today, but there's just better values.
Last game of the night, Chicago White Sox, Seattle Mariners, Jose Quintana against Wade Miley. 2 lefties facing off against each other. Any interest in these pitchers?
Yeah, I can see some interest in Quintana for sure. He's getting a nice park upgrade, getting out of US Cellular, going into Safeco. A great park for strikeouts, a good park for run prevention. He throws from the right side. Left-handed pitchers against Seattle are the pitchers you want against them because so many of their best bats are left-handed. Cano and Seager and whoever else. So yeah, I think he's a solid play today. Definitely a GPP guy.
Yeah, you really only worry about 3 bats: Gutierrez, Cruz, and Lee. That's kind of where you're worried about.
And even at that, I mean, Gutierrez and Lee aren't that dangerous, especially in this park.
Oh, man, you got to have a little bit more respect for Lee than that. He's like the big punching bag.
I love Lee. I mean, I love him as a player. He's always smiling. He's just like a roly-poly, like happy-go-lucky guy, and I love Lee. But I don't know, right-handed batters in general, I tend to think people put a little too much stock into their platoon splits. So even though they have big platoon splits against lefties, I think that's overstated a little bit. They're good hitters, but they're not, guys that I'm super worried about. I'm not going to go out of my way to not play a pitcher because of them.
Yeah, and we kind of seen it last night. Sale went out and dominated the game. We're recording the night before, obviously, like we always say. Only one hit by the Mariners in that game, and it's the ninth inning. So, left-handed pitching is definitely what you want. Outside of Cruz, I really don't want any Seattle bats. Now, looking at the White Sox, is there anybody you want to target here against Miley?
It's kind of tough with them because, like I said, you're taking them out of US Cellular, which is such a good park for them, and putting them into Safeco. But some of their prices are kind of nice. Like Jose Abreu, I know he hasn't done a whole lot lately, but his price tag on Fantasy Draft and DraftKings is it's too low for him.
Yeah, and I keep falling into the trap of his price tag just being too low for him. I feel like I play him a ton just because he's been this cheap for so long now.
Yeah, he really has. And I mean, I do think you need to pick your spots a little bit with him, but before that price tag, he doesn't have to do a ton. He doesn't have to be this, 30 home run type of hitter that he's been the past couple of years to be worth that price tag. He hits a double and scores a run, and, he's paying it off basically.
Yeah, Todd Frazier.
Todd Frazier, he's too expensive. If he was the same price, the same price point as Abreu, sure, but he's close to $5K on DraftKings. So I can't see paying that for him outside of US Cellular because he is so boom or bust. It's like home run or nothing with him. If he's not in ideal home run conditions, you just can't pay that price.
And he hit another one at Safeco tonight, or I just don't see it with Frazier. Like, I don't know. I fade him more than probably everybody else. I don't know. I feel like he's going to be under-owned. So if you want to play him in a tournament because you're getting a guy at probably 3 to 5% that has 26 home runs this year, that's never necessarily a bad thing.
No, in a GPP for sure. I mean, it's a below average lefty. There's always a chance Frazier is going to go deep. But from a cash game standpoint, there's no value in that price.
If I remember correctly, Wade Miley's really good at holding runners on, so I don't have a lot of interest in Tim Anderson.
Yeah, Wade Miley is very good at holding runners on, which is going to depress Anderson's value quite a bit.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the game-by-game breakdown. Everybody tunes in for the home run derby anyway, so no tiers, no Coors Field, obviously. I'm ruling that out because –
Wait, what was the first one?
I said no pricing tiers.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
anywhere you want to go, just not Coors Field, and I'll let you bat lead off here.
Okay, so, I'm gonna go with Adam Duvall as my first pick.
That's always a good thing. I'm never gonna hate on that, obviously. I'm going David Ortiz. I never get Poppy. I'm going Poppy. Everybody takes Poppy. I'm going Poppy.
I like Poppy. That's a good pick. Let's see. I'm going to go – we didn't actually really talk about him that much because we talked about liking Velasquez, but I'm going to go with Giancarlo Stanton just because Velasquez is a fly ball guy. Citizens Bank Park is a big home run park, and there's definitely power upside with Stanton.
I got a random one for you. I'm going to go to the second base position here, and I'm going to go Ian Kinsler.
That is out there. I'm surprised that even if you were going the Detroit route that you wouldn't go with like a Miggy or a, Castellanos or someone like that.
I didn't want to make it too obvious. I didn't want to go back-to-back first basemen, but Kinsler, 18 home runs this year, shocking some people at second base.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to go with I'm gonna go with Edwin Encarnacion. I didn't pick a first baseman yet, so I'm gonna allow myself to take one.
That's okay. My last one is kind of my favorite value play on the slate, and it's Adonis Garcia. I love this spot for him.
I love him as well.
I feel like it's an excellent spot for him. Just looking, I know, like we said, Cody Reed, all small sample size, but he has struggled massively with righties.
He has, and the price is so good on Garcia today on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft. He's pretty much a must play in your cash games.
All right, if you had to pick one pitcher at the end of the day, not named Arrieta, Salazar, Syndergaard, I'm actually going to go a little lower than I usually do and rule out Carlos Martinez. Doesn't have to score the most fantasy points, but you think at the end of the day, this guy's going to pick up a win. Who do you have?
Aaron Sanchez.
Aaron Sanchez at Arizona. You know I'm not going to hate on that at all. I can definitely get behind that. Oh, man. Like, I feel like this is so risky for this segment, but I feel like my middle name is risky, so I kind of got to go here. I'm going to go Reynaldo Lopez because I expect him to get tons of run support here against Kazmir. And I know I'm probably on my own island with the Washington stack, but one of my faves.
Yeah, I don't like playing Kazmir today, but I don't like playing Washington against him either. I do think he's a good pitcher, so I'm not on that island with you.
That's why I said I like being on islands alone because when it happens, it can usually have those big days.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to wrap it up here. I know we made a special announcement here at Roto Grinders kind of during the All-Star break, and they said the bat, 50% off now?
Yeah, second half of the year, so we cut the price in half.
Well, that's never a bad thing, right?
Absolutely not, especially if you like winning.
A lot of stuff that goes into the bat. If you guys aren't checking it out, man, it's a really good tool to start and end your research with. Kind of see where he's at beginning of the day and see what pitchers, umpires, catchers, everything's affecting your projections, right?
Absolutely, all that kind of stuff. Down to whether the umpire prefers calling pitches for right-handers or left-handers, whether the catcher's good, not just at throwing out runners, but pitch framing's in there, all sorts of cool weather factors. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, Fernandez must have had a very plus umpire tonight because he was getting strikes like a ball and a half outside.
Yeah, he was insane.
just incredible. But that's gonna wrap it up here for the Morning Grind podcast. Like I said at the beginning of the show, if you guys enjoy the podcast Monday through Friday, make sure you head on over to our sponsor site, fantasydraft.com. Really cool 5-day survive in advance. You only have to beat 70% of the field every day until the last day where you'll compete against, I think it's like 36 people will compete on day 4 to get to the last day. So you're really only beating 70% of the field for 4 or 5 days. Sounds pretty simple. I'm definitely going to max it out and play my entries, and it's only $8 to get in. So make sure you guys head on over there. Check that out. Check Derek out on the bat. You can find him on Grinders Live. You can find him on XM. You can find him just about everywhere. I wouldn't call him the dirty word, but, he's kind of acting like one of those whores. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up here, and good luck in your contest tonight, and we'll see you again tomorrow.